Hello, this is Dr. Andrew Allen from Midwestern State University again, with just a few thoughts regarding the TMEA All-State Jazz Region Improv Etude. So, for some of you, you're adept and skilled improvisers. For some of you, you're journeyman improvisers, and for some of you, this is the first time that you've ever attempted improvisation. So, improvisation, of course, is absolutely, positively basic skill for a saxophonist. No matter if you want to be a classical saxophonist, jazz saxophonist, or both, which you should, you need to have some improvisation skills. It's expected. So, looking at this blues, that is the Region Improv Etude, it's a really good first step for you guys. Now, most of you guys are going to know your blues scale for this tune. For the alto and bari players, of course, it's an E blues, so you're going to need your E blues scale. For the tenor players out there, we need an A blues scale. So, of course, if you want to take that first step, knowing that blues scale will help you play over these changes. Now, once you're comfortable with that, you can take a few other steps. And that's going to help you as you progress as an improviser and give you a lot more confidence, a lot more ability to tackle things other than blueses, especially this all-state improv etude that you've got coming up that's based on rhythm changes. So the first piece of advice beyond your blues scales, I would actually give you another blues scale. Something else that works really well as a little bit of contrast if you want to stick with that E blues scale for the alto and bari players, for that A for the tenor players. You can also incorporate the minor third lower blues scale. What do I mean by that? I don't know. So the blues scale, a minor third lower than the key the piece is in, works as well, and can provide a lot more color, a lot more contrast, some new notes for you. So for alto and bari players, that's C sharp blues, and for the tenor players, that's going to be F sharp blues. So you've got those couple in play. Maybe you're feeling like you want to explore even a little bit more. Well, then we can start talking about the actual chords themselves. So chords, of course, have repercussions. As we all know, you're singing a song, your buddy's playing guitar behind you, and you hit a wrong note. Oh, well, that doesn't work, does it? So we want to avoid that. We want to figure out what notes we can and can't play against certain chords. So you're really only dealing with 4 chords in this whole Region Improv Etude. You've got E dominant 7, you've got A dominant 7, you've got B7 alt, and you've got C7 alt. So what does all of that mean? I'm talking in E flat right now. Tenors, you just take a look at your music and figure out what that means for you. So each one of these, when I said the E dominant 7th or the A dominant 7th, for tenor players that'd be A dominant 7th or D dominant 7th. What am I dealing with? So E dominant 7th for altos and baris, it's an E, a G sharp, a B, and a D natural. And it may really behoove you to go through this piece and just walk up and down that chord. For tenor players, that first chord that you have is going to be an A, C sharp, E, G. Okay? So your first step with your metronome, slow to begin with, work it up. This is practicing just like anything else. You've got 8 bars of that. But you need to be able to get that chord in your ear. You need to be able to get that tonality in your ear. Same thing, we've got an A7 is the next chord after 8 bars for altos and baris. For tenors, we've got a D7. So A7 is A, C sharp, E, G natural. That's an A dominant 7. And the D dominant 7 is D, F sharp, A, C natural. So do the same thing. Get familiar with the chord. And then we have E7 again, so you just walk that up and down, same thing. And A for our tenor players, etc. Then we have kind of these weird things that probably, unless you've done a lot of improv, that you guys haven't encountered before. Those are going to be the alt chords. So alt chords, they're like normal dominant 7th chords. Okay? So let's imagine for the altos and baris, we've got a B dominant 7th chord. So it's going to be B, D sharp, F sharp, A natural. Okay. For the tenor players, let's just imagine an E dominant 7th chord. So E, G sharp, B, D natural. Hey, that works, no problem. An alt chord is going to take the fifth of the chord and raise it half a step. So instead of getting, you get something a little funkier. Ooh, that's more interesting, isn't it? So all you're doing for the alto players is going to be a B, a D sharp, an F double sharp, which is actually just your G. So B, D sharp, G, A natural. Okay? You can just deal with those notes and you'll be fine. Tenors, that's going to be an E, G sharp, B sharp, which is the same fingering as a C natural, and then D, D natural. Okay? So, if you guys have that, you're going to be fine. So you get comfortable with all of these chords, you get them in your ear, you can do them on the metronome, 2-tempo, just walking them up and down, walking them up and down, walking them up and down. The next step is going to be to explore the guide tones. Now this is going to be pretty easy for a blues, especially since we hold on to a chord for 8 bars, we hold on to the next for 4, the next for 4, the next for 2, 1, 1, 4. Okay, not a big deal. But especially when you get into more advanced improvisation, when you get into things like the rhythm changes that are coming out for those of you who make it far enough, you need to be able to think about this. Now, in the little packet that you have, they have a more complex set of guide tones in one of the exercises. I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about the most basic guide tones, which when we talk about guide tones in jazz, we're talking about the thirds and the sevenths of chords. They're the notes that kind of give the chord shape and substance. All right. So you're just going to play through the guide tones. So I'm in my alto key. So for E dominant 7th, the third of that chord is G sharp, the 7th is D. Ooh, that's kind of interesting, isn't it? For alto key, A dominant 7th, I've got C sharp and G, etc., etc., etc. It's really interesting on the alt chords. For the B7 alt for alto key, we've got G and we've got D sharp and we've got A. So it's just the same as if you had a dominant chord. Okay, not that interesting. Oh well. But even though it doesn't seem like it, this is going to help you make melodies. All of these nice little active tones that want to lead to something else are going to help you craft and build these melodies. Now, the next step is figuring out what scales besides the blues scales that you can play over these changes. So for instance, if you've got a dominant 7th chord, which we have a lot of in this piece, you can play what's known as a Mixolydian mode. It's a whole lot like your major scale, except you're going to lower the 7th by half a step. So for our E7 for alto, for our A7 for tenors, so that E major scale, just an E major scale for us with a D natural. For that A major scale for you tenor players is an A major scale, but instead of G sharp, you're going to play a G natural. Another scale that works really well is what I call the Lydian flat 7, which is a whole lot like what we just played, except you're going to raise the 4th by half a step and lower the 7th by half a step. So for that first chord, we get some cool stuff that you can do in there. There's a nice little half-step relationship between 4 and 5, all kinds of interesting things. You can do the same thing on the next chord, the A7, A dominant 7 for altos and baries, the D dominant 7 for tenors. Play either a Mixolydian scale based on that note or a Lydian flat 7 scale based on that note. Now, your best bet for the alt chords, I would say, are whole tone scales, which is exactly what it sounds like. There's a whole step between each note. So, for alto players, you can play B whole tone. For that B7 alt. For the tenor players, you guys can do E whole tone, so just E, F sharp, etc. Same thing on the C7 alt for the alto players, the next chord, the F7 alt for the tenor players. You guys can just play a whole tone scale based on that. Now again, you are just getting comfortable with these. You're playing them against the Met on 2 and 4, by the way. And you're just building comfort, you're getting them in your mind's ear. Once you're comfortable with the scales, you start doing them in thirds. You start doing them in fourths. You do them backwards. You do them backwards in thirds and fourths. Doing all of this stuff until eventually you have all these ideas starting to pop up. And then you can improvise. So, long story short, build this foundation of technique with this blues. And I guarantee you, when you guys start doing more complex things like this rhythm changes that's coming up, you're going to be prepared. Again, any questions, any comments, please get a hold of me, andrew.allen@mwsu.edu, and good luck.